And 100 Grand Ross with The Rock Never Stops. Happy Juneteenth, y'all. Happy Juneteenth. Those of y'all who aren't familiar with the holiday Juneteenth, it is the commemoration of the story of emancipation of African people in the United States who gained their freedom. Uh, However, there was very little intention to make sure that everyone gained access to realizing that they were now legally free. So, those who were being freed and conscious began to spread all throughout the United States to let people know that they had now been legally freed. And it took some time, and it took a good amount of time. And there's some stories where people are um, they had actually stayed enslaved for years after emancipation. All that's to say is Juneteenth is the commemoration of the freedom of African people here in the United States. And yeah, and that spreading of that news took time, and that journey, that collective effort to make sure everyone found out, was a beautiful effort from within the community to make sure everyone gained their freedom and emancipation. With that, happy Juneteenth, everybody. Um, to the topic at hand, Detroit Pistons. You know, there was a thought that I had a while ago, and I said, what happens if all the draft picks hit? What happens if each player that the Pistons have drafted that are still on this team become what we think they can be, maximize their potential, develop, become serviceable players for a playoff championship contending team? What if? What if all these things come together? Well, what we see is so far they're headed in that direction. And I think some of us get a little impatient. We see we have a superstar and we're just like, oh, go for it right now. Because we think all it takes is just one. Some of us watching teams like the Minnesota Timberwolves understand it takes far more than just one. Watching other teams that are struggling, we realize it takes a collective effort. But the series that was extremely interesting for me was watching the Detroit Pistons versus the New York Knicks. And what you saw with the Knicks was that it wasn't just Brunson. It was OG Anunoby, Mikal Bridges, Carl Anthony Towns, Mitchell Robinson. Each of these guys were contributing at a high level throughout the course of the game and the series. And at different times, they would be able to assert themselves and to be able to take over for stretches. I mean, there were stretches we were looking at OG Anunoby like, who is this? Is this Kawhi freaking Leonard? Like, who is this dude? Right? All this to say is having a collective effort as a team allows you the opportunity to be able to compete with just about anybody, but not just compete with anyone, but in the playoffs to be able to perform at a high level, extremely high level. What's good, 24 Minds? It's good to have you in the chat, brother. Happy Juneteenth. And when I started looking at this team's arc of development, we see Cade Cunningham. Yeah, he had his injury in his sophomore year, so he was out for the full season. Came back under the Monty Williams regime, and then now JB Bickerstaff, and he's bouncing back and he's playing extremely well. And we see that ascension, right? Third team All NBA. That's dope. And then we saw Ivy came in as a rookie, had to run point, but got to develop. Struggled defensively and with his turnovers that carried over to the Monty Williams regime. Kind of had a little dip, and then came back the first half of the season. Looked really good. Looked really good. His efficiency took a huge jump. We saw him taking over for stretches with Cade Cunningham playing alongside of him and on the bench. He showed that he could really uh, potentially become that all-star level uh, supporting cast running mate for Cade Cunningham. But then there was Asar Thompson, who was last season looking like one of the more dominant defensive players in the league, but he had the blood clots. Ended his rookie year early, ended up starting off the first half of this season on the bench, dealing with the blood clots. Sorry, not on the bench, unable to participate because of the blood clots. And then he comes in mid-season at the beginning of the new year, well, late December into the new year, and all of a sudden we see Asar Thompson ascend. We saw Asar Thompson begin to dominate defensively, and to an extent, he unlocked Jalen Duren because, as I explained many times before, Asar Thompson's defensive ability actually allowed Jalen Duren the extra split second to be able to read what's taking place and to be in position so he's not picking up silly fouls. And by the time the playoffs hit, we looked at Thompson as this all world defender, this Swiss Army knife to the umpteenth degree. What's good, Shane? Happy Juneteenth. Uh, and we saw Asar Thompson continue to ascend. And we're like, yo, if this dude ever puts it together, if he ever puts the handle together with the finishing around the rim, any semblance of a jump shot, consistency, he is going to be absolutely scary. And then we saw the second half of the season, along with Asar Thompson's emergence back into the starting lineup, Jalen Duren begin to turn that corner. And we saw Jalen Duren begin to become this double-double machine. At times, I would look at the box score and I would be like, man, how does Jalen Duren only take 4 shots and he made 3 or 4? Like, you let me make 1 of 1, I'm definitely shooting 2 and 3. If I'm hitting 3 of 3, I'm getting a 6 and 7. Somehow Jalen Duren stops at 4. I don't know. Go figure. Go figure. But you saw by the time the playoffs came, by the time the playoffs hit, and he's going up against Mitchell Robinson, he's going up against Karl Anthony Towns, he's in a playoff setting against a championship contending team, one of the best defensive coaches in the NBA, and Tom Thibodeau. You saw him emerge. You saw Jalen Duren emerge as an elite level center, putting up double doubles, scoring effectively around the rim, really imposing his size and showing he could be extremely effective. His ascension was continuing. But then we saw Ron Holland as a rookie. And I mean, talk about a teaser. Talk about absolutely brimming with confidence and potential, being able to change the game energetically, create a huge impact from the jump, the moment he steps foot on the floor. And shout out to JB Bickerstaff for holding him accountable, for being able to say, hey, man, we need you to make sure that you keep that energy up. Because there were times where you could see uh, Ron Holland get a little bit kind of hunkered down into the offensive side of things, waiting for the ball, sitting around, standing around, waiting for kickouts to take a three. And even though he was improving as a 3-point shooter, he was forgetting that, well, his main contribution is the energy that he puts forth in the game to contribute across the board, a la kind of Asar Thompson. All right. And then score where you can. And he was figuring that out throughout the year. And there were times where he would come in the game and completely change the landscape of the game. His contribution continued to ascend. Now, I can go through, talk about Isaiah Stewart, looking like one of the best defensive big centers in the game, especially coming off the bench behind Duren. He was absolutely formidable. He was an anchor for the Detroit Pistons, culture setter. He continues to improve and work on his game. I still remember him crossing over Evan Mobley. Remember when he gave him the little little in out cross, dropped him, and then drove to the basket and finished with his left? Yo, like, Isaiah Stewart is still getting better on top of shooting 38% from the 3-point line last season. He's still getting better. And then my man Marcus Sasser, whom I just dropped a video about, how I think the Detroit Pistons can be sleeping on him. They might be sleeping on him because I think he could be the type of microwave scorer like a Vinnie Johnson, but even have a bit of a Lindsey Hunter type defensive impact. But he's going to have to officially switch on that, flip on that switch. That's what I'm looking for. He has to come in with the mindset that I have to be a disruptor on defense and then remain aggressive offensively. Stop worrying about setting up everybody else. Let Ivy, Cade, Asar do the setting up stuff, right? You focus on being a bucket from the moment you touch on the floor. I want you like Peyton Pritchard meets Lindsey Hunter, right? I need you firing away, casting away, get to the rim, floaters, layups, pull back threes, step back threes, mid range. I need you to get going. And then I need you to be a disruptor on defense. But we've seen that potential nonstop in his first 2 seasons. What if all these guys hit? What if Bobby Clinton hits. And I'm gonna do a video on him later on. I think that his main step is once again on the defensive side. Similar to Marcus Sasser and everybody else, Jaden Ivey, the big jump is going to be reinforcing the identity of this team that they are going to defend at an extremely high level. And in that defensive effort, be able to control the flow of the game and stymieing the other team's offense and creating easy scoring opportunities that allows these guys to be able to fit with one another as they figure out the offensive side of things. Because, like I said before, as they continue to grow and ascend, it is going to be, it is going to take time for them to all come together, just like it did with LeBron and D Wade and Chris Bosh and all of them, right? It took them time to figure it out. And these were veteran players who had played together, Team USA, All Star games, right? This team has not played together. And so it's going to take them time to evolve as an offense. But defensively is more about effort, it's more about intentionality, intensity, being locked in. And I think that this is a team, this is a squad that if they lock in on the defensive end, they will have the ability to be absolutely terrifying in the NBA. I think they're going to have the ability to absolutely wreak havoc in the NBA. This is why, and I'm going to do some more draft content later on. Um, this is why I want them to draft someone who reinforces their ability to play that high level, intense defense. This is why I've been kind of pushing for a Drake Powell or a what's his name, Jameer Watkins out of Florida State. Right, 6'7" wing, long wingspan, who has a versatile skill set, good shooting form, uh, and he's a little bit older. Imagine like an older Ron Holland, not the same level of speed, but same level of intensity as a player. Think Iman Shumpert, just a little bit taller, right? If we draft to reinforce the culture of defense, of versatility, of speed, athleticism, the ability to get downhill and put pressure on a defense and create open threes, I think this is going to transform what this team is able to do over a long stretch. Over a long stretch. But Bobby Clinton is a player who also needs to embed himself within the defensive framework and mindset of this team's culture and identity as a team. And that's going to be incumbent upon JB Bickerstaff and his coaching staff to be able to really impress that upon the team from day one. We're going to be about defense as we figure out the offense, as your guys' game grows, right? Because guys have levels to go, right? Jaden Ivey in the starting lineup now all of a sudden is going to be up to probably like 35 minutes. With 35 minutes a game, he's also going to be taking more shots. Asar Thompson running point forward, how you distribute and find guys. Jalen Duren attacking his mismatch more while doing dribble handoffs and pick and rolls and lobs and dump offs, right? And post ups, all these different things. It's going to take them time to figure out. But if they can figure out how to be focused on defense, it'll buy them time. They'll still win because of the level of athleticism, speed, quickness. In the NBA. And I believe it's going to result in a dynasty. Because if there's something that you see from, let's say, the Oklahoma City Thunder, they have the type of team that they have hit on so many draft picks from Cason Wallace, Chet Holmgren, Jalen Williams, or J Dub, uh, um, uh, big Jalen Williams who plays on the interior, right? You look at guys like who aren't even playing right now, Usman Jiang, you got Isaiah Joe, who they traded for, but they have so many players, right? Not to mention last season's first round pick, right? Who was probably one of the more elite point guards coming into the NBA, which is another trade chip for them. But even someone who was undrafted, I think it was undrafted, like LeGuins Dort, they hit on all these guys. And as a result, the level of continuity, team identity, culture, mindset, ability to play at a maximal level with one another because they've developed that trust is what allows them to be dominating in the NBA finals right now. The reason why these guys are hitting big shots and big moments is because they've been hitting big shots and big moments with one another. They trust each other. Just like Jaden Ivey hitting game winners this past season is what's going to allow Cade Cunningham to trust him in clutch situations and Asar Thompson to trust him, right? These experiences with one another. That's what allows you to grow a dynasty type team, right? The Clay with the Steph, with the Draymond, with the Iguodalas, with the Sean Livingston. What's good, Tony? What's good? Happy Juneteenth, brother. Happy Juneteenth. Smash the like button for me. I got 10 people in this live chat and only 3 likes. And throw some of your comments in the chat section because it's definitely an interactive chat. All this to say is that when you look at the Oklahoma City Thunder, the reason why they look so good is because they continue to develop from within. And the trust that they have with one another allows them to perform at the highest level. I think that's what the Detroit Pistons are building. I literally see that. And some of y'all, I know you want the quick, fast way to get to a championship. There is no quick, fast way. The reality is championships are not guaranteed. It don't take much to throw you and keep you out of contention. One injury, out of contention, right? A coach that doesn't mesh well with the roster, out of contention, right? It doesn't take much. And so along that journey, you have to be thinking, how do I create the potential for a maximal opportunity to win at the highest level, to win a championship? And you do that through depth. You do that through developing your players. You have to. It's a must. It's a must. If you do not develop your players, if you do not develop that trust, that confidence, that continuity within your team, you will be limited as a roster. If everyone's deferring to the same guys to take all the shots, you know what ends up happening? Those guys get tired. And then with a good enough defensive scheme, you can force that main guy to then have to trust guys he hasn't had to trust the whole season or the past couple years. And now guys are thrust into positions they have not been in before. But if you watch OKC, if you watch the Indiana Pacers, everyone trusts each other. They're swinging that ball around. If you're open, they know the shots they're supposed to be taking. They play to their strengths, and they are stars in their role. Whether it's Aaron Nesmith, Miles Turner, Pascal Siakam, Jarris Walker, Andrew Nembhard, TJ McConnell, Tyrese Halliburton, right? You can go through the whole list. Everyone believes in their role, and they play it at a high level. Kava Stewart, what's good, my man? What's going on? I was just watching your last vid. I watched the whole thing about Sasser. You told no lies. I agree. Nice job. And I got 40 years. Hey, I appreciate it, man. I appreciate it. I appreciate it. I really, when I look at how talented this team is, when I look at how talented these Pistons are, I'm saying to myself, like there's no way that they should not be a team that's winning over the next, let's say, 5 to 8 years. Oh, I apologize, Miss Stewart. I apologize. It is good to have your energy and your presence in this space. Happy Juneteenth. I believe in this roster. I believe in the coaching staff. I believe in the direction. And that is not easy for me to say about most teams. Most teams, I call it out. Look, I used to study this stuff in school, undergrad, sociology of sport. I know all the business stuff. I know all the stuff that makes you not like the game, the politics and all that stuff. So I've seen past the veil, y'all. And I'll tell you right now that most organizations don't deserve your loyalty. Most teams don't deserve your loyalty. Most organizations and teams are just trash and making bad moves. And so it's really hard to get behind them. It takes a lot for me to get behind a franchise. And the Pistons have shown me that I can get behind them. From Dwayne Casey, letting go of Monty Williams, going right to JB Bickerstaff, continue to develop within, being patient, doing all the things that you just learn works. This shit works. It works. Depth works. Defensive foundation works. Playing together, continuity, works. Trusting each other, moving the ball around, works. This shit works. And so when I see a team and an organization doing that, it, it, it piques my interest. And when I look at this team from top to bottom, y'all should be excited about everything that this team is doing right now. Because right now, they're making the right moves. Not to say that it's like everything is right or wrong. It's to say that the moves that they're making are continuing to move them in the direction of success. Of success. It's the reason why I don't necessarily see Malik Beasley or Tim Hardaway Jr. or Dennis Schroeder coming back next season. I don't think that I think they were great for where we were. I think they were great for trying to help transition us from bottom feeding team into a playoff team or near playoff team, which is where I had them at a 32 to 35 win team. They shocked me by getting to 44 wins. All that to say is, I think the Pistons are making the right moves, and the next stage of those right moves is betting on the talent that they've brought in. Betting on the talent that they've brought in. I keep saying Jaden Ivey is not a Robin to Cade Cunningham's Batman. Jaden Ivey is Iron Man next to Captain America. Asar Thompson is Thor next to Iron Man next to Captain America. All right, Jalen Duren is the Incredible Hulk next to Thor, next to Iron Man, next to Captain America. Right, Marcus Sasser is like Hawkeye. Right, what's his name? Shoot, Ron Holland might be like a Loki. Right, you can be a little bit of a head case at time doing too much. Right, Isaiah Stewart, I don't know what you might call him. We can figure out somebody for him to be. All that's to say is that these dudes have shown the ability to play their role at an extremely high level. And when we stop thinking of them in a hierarchical format and we start thinking of them as what they can accomplish collectively, I think that's where we should just be like, yo, this could be a dynasty. This could be a dynasty. Remember when the Detroit Pistons won their last title, I think it was in '04 against the Los Angeles Lakers, everyone played major within their role. Stu's the thing. I was thinking the thing too, but that's more Fantastic Four. And if you follow comic books, the Hulk beat the shit out of Thing. And that was hilarious. So I don't think that energy is gonna be happening between Duran and Stu, but I could see it. I was thinking Thing as well. All that's to say is when we think of this team collectively and what they can accomplish as a full unit, I think that is a better way to look at this roster and stop seeing the different pieces in this hierarchical fashion, right? Uh, Tobias Harris has a real role on this team, right? He has a real role on this team. Wolverine been on the Avengers. When? He's on X-Men, bro. That's a whole other side. Whole other side, bro. Let me get to some of these comments. The best thing about the Pistons, Tony Headhunter, is enjoying this team's building process. I agree as well. I agree as well. I have enjoyed seeing these guys grow. I've been so anxiously awaiting these guys to come together. Right? It's almost like watching Endgame and just waiting for the rest of the Avengers to come back. You know what I mean? It's like, oh shit, when the rest of them come back, it's finna be on. And then as soon as Asar came back, Ivy got hurt, and he was like, "Oh, bro, damn, damn." You know, it's kind of disappointing, but you can't lose sight of these other pieces. You can't lose sight of these other pieces. You can't forget that when these pieces come together, what they can be collectively, the impact that they can have, and I think that that's where I begin to think dynasty. When we have these pieces together, imagine a Cade Cunningham who does not have to carry an offense game after game after game. Imagine when we have the opportunity to just dump the ball into the post to Jalen Duren and say, go to work. When Asar Thompson can just orchestrate everything and start getting downhill and looking like his twin, Amin Thompson, this past season for the Houston Rockets. Except Detroit's going to have way more shooting because now they got Tobias Harris, Jaden Ivey, and Cade Cunningham all on the perimeter, whom you can't leave. Think about how open the middle of the court's going to be. That type of a finishing lineup, that type of a group that's able to come in and teams are like, yo, what the fuck do we do? Right? Ron Holland comes in the game and completely changes the pace, begins to get into the passing lanes, turn teams over, get out in transition. Now they're throwing lobs to one another. Asar Thompson, Jaden Ivey, Ron Holland, Cade Cunningham. They just out here just jumping and dunking, jumping and dunking. They're looking like NBA Jam. He's on fire, throwing it up in the air. Next guy throws it up in the air. Next guy throws it up in the air, and the last guy comes and dunks it. That's what they're going to have, the type of team that can achieve those types of limits as a collective unit. And I don't see another team in the NBA who can do anything with that. I don't see one other team that has that type of wing depth of athleticism, size, positional versatility, defensive capability. I don't see that from any of the contenders. The closest thing you might get to is like a Minnesota Timberwolves. Anthony Edwards. You might look at uh, Jaden McDaniels. I think they're going to lose Nikhil Alexander Walker, but then they got Terrence Shannon. They have some pretty good wings and depth on that team, but I don't think that they have the same amount of talent as the wings for the Detroit Pistons. But I'll say this: we already frustrated them last year. You already saw when we walked into Minnesota and had to put the smack on them real quick. And they got mad, tried to fight Ron Holland, a 19-year-old kid, right? And Isaiah Stewart, I'd be like, man, get off my young bruh. You know what I'm saying? And lift cats up out of there. All that's to say is they already see us coming. There's not a single other contender that's built to be able to stop this team at its full potential. And they're still growing. That's the scary dope thing about it. That is the scary dope thing about it. They're still growing. They're still evolving. This is not the final form, right? If you watch anime stuff like that, right? You watch Dragon Ball Z, the final form. When they get to that Super Saiyan, Super Saiyan, they out here evolving in the hair, turning all the colors, right? We ain't even got there yet. Right? What happens when we got 4 all-stars on this team? Jalen Duren, Asara Thompson, Jaden Ivey, Cade Cunningham. Right? What happens when we got all 4 recognized? What happens? We'll get to some of these comments real quick. Let me see. Pistons are doing correct building process. Yeah. Yep. Never was a fan of buying a team or superstars. Look, I'm gonna be honest. If you can go out there and get one, dope. You can build in different ways. I'm saying for the Pistons, trust your process. Trust your process. Like some teams make hell of a move. Indiana Pacers trading DeMontis Sabonis for Tyrese Halliburton was a hell of a move. Not mad at that at all. Miami Heat getting Jimmy Butler out of Minnesota. Great move. Right? Lakers getting LeBron, Anthony Davis. Great move. Getting Luka Doncic. Great move. Okay, that's dope. That's how they got him. But if you already got guys, you don't need to go out and look for a guy you already got. It makes no sense. You just have taken another lane to build a championship contender. And when you've chosen your lane, you've got to see it through. That's the lane that they're in. That's the lane that they are in. Cade is only 23 years old. Ivy is 22 going on 23. Jalen Duren is 21 going on 22. Asar Thompson is 22 going on 23. Marcus Sasser is 23 going on 24. Right? Ron Holland is 19 going on 20. They're all around the same age group. You don't need to go out and bring somebody who's 26, 27, 28, who's trying to win right now and is not going to be with the developmental process and ascension of this core unit. Because Devin Booker's not waiting for nobody. He's trying to win right now. Right? Trey Murphy the third, I like him. Dante, right? I like him. I'm not willing to part with what it will cost this team to get him. I like Trey. bit injury prone. Does he have a higher ceiling than Asar Thompson? I don't think so. Does he have as high of a ceiling as maybe Jaden Ivey? Sure, I can give you that. Will he complement Cade as well? No. Because Cade needs another high level shot creator, someone who can have gravity on the offensive end. I don't see Trey Murphy ever developing into a focal point of an offense for a playoff team. Like at best, Trey Murphy can potentially become Franz Wagner light. Better shooter, not as physical, can't necessarily take advantage of smaller players. But the lack of physicality and individual shot creation means that he's got a cap when he gets into the playoffs and he has to face OG Anunoby and Mikal Bridges. Do you see him being able to take advantage of those level of defenders? Josh Hart and Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown, right? The guys you're going to have to go through. Can he elevate his game? I haven't seen that. I don't think he's a Brandon Ingram level shot creator, right? So these are things that we have to consider. I think Jaden Ivey's ceiling is higher in that regard. Therefore, he's a better fit alongside Cade Cunningham because next to Cade Cunningham, you need a high level shot creator, playmaker. And that's Jaden Ivey. Get to some of these comments. I appreciate all the comments, y'all. Keep them coming. And remember, if I don't get to yours, please feel free to drop a super chat. While I get to these comments, definitely smash the like button for me if you're enjoying this interactive live on this topic for the Detroit Pistons. Definitely helps out with the YouTube channel and the algorithm and the such. Um, Low budget talker was good. To be better, we can't bring them back because right now, Orlando, Indy, Knicks, and maybe Raptors look like they on pace to be better if we run it back. I've said this before. We don't need to run back we do not need to run back the same exact roster. What we need to bring back is the core, right? That's starting five: Cade, Ivy, Asar, Tobias Harris, Jalen Duren. Then our young bench: Marcus Sasser, Ron Holland, Bobby Klintman, Isaiah Stewart. We can hang on to Simone Fontecchio because of the contract. I like Tolu Smith as well as a third center. And then we need to fill in. We need to fill in a position on the wing, maybe guard, someone who can do some playmaking, facilitating, while also being able to defend and play both sides. I think we might be able to do that in the draft with Jameer Watkins, or we can do that via trade, bring in a veteran, Marcus Smart, Chris Middleton, someone like that, and then we can have more support on the fringes. We can round out the fringes, but the core is set. I think that we have 9 players that we should be committed to going into next season, if not 10. I might include Tolu Smith because I think he could be a substantial third string center. He's got the size, the physicality, the rebounding. I think that he develops with this group, builds continuity, and he could be a great third string center off the bench, especially if Duren goes down, knock on wood, at any time. We have somebody who has girth and size, which is what we missed with Paul Reed last year. We missed that when Stu went down. It was a substantial size difference on the interior. He played hard, but just wasn't big enough. I like Santi Aldama. I would never sign Russell Westbrook. No, no, no. Westbrook is not a good mentor for Ivy. Similar type of a player. Unfortunately, Russell Westbrook does not read the game at a high level. And because he does not read the game at a high level, he can get sped up and out of control. That's already what Ivy's struggling with. You need to bring in a guard who plays with speed, but also pace and control so Ivy can have that example to look at. I would not bring in a Russell Westbrook. Um, Santi Aldama, sure. But here's the thing. Are you sure Bobby Klintman can't be just as good? Are you sure? Are you sure that Bobby Klintman can't become just as good next season? Right? These are things that we have to consider. We have to think about. Let me see. Get some of these other comments here. Check the time. Oh yeah, I gotta get off. I got a 2 o'clock. I got a 2 o'clock. Let me see. Let me see. Hmm. Uh, let's do the thing. Wolverine been on. Nope. In the comics, Wolverine never been on the Avengers. Y'all hilarious with these comics. I'll be on the comics too, bro. I'll be on the. I used man. I was that kid, man. I read all them comics. Um, yeah, that's not canon, Dante. Wolverine hates the Avengers. I think Sasser and Klintman are getting a decent sized role increase alongside Holland. Great point. I think so too next season. I think he's going to. I think you could see Sasser getting at least 15 minutes a game, at least, at least, which is a great amount of minutes for the scoring pop that he can bring, and that defensive pressure he can put on at the point of attack. And then I think Klintman, if he comes in with a defensive mindset, improves himself, that he can rebound, defend, along with knocking down shots, passing the ball, getting out in transition and such, I think he will leapfrog Simone Fontecchio. And then he'll get somewhere around 10 to 12 minutes per game. Ron Holland, I think, will see a big jump as well. He's going to get about 15 minutes per game off the bench as well. Now, remember, there's only limited minutes out there. I think I see our core moving forward is Sasser, Holland, and Stewart off the bench as our primary rotation off the bench. Bobby Klintman or Fontecchio will fill in, and whoever we bring in after that will fill in between Sasser and Holland. And this is where we have to be thinking who is going to be good in that role, will want that role, right? The 8 to 12 minutes potentially, maybe, because you're still playing behind Sasser and Holland. And of course, Stewart. Who's going to fill in? We already got a guy fill in that little forward role with Klintman and Fontecchio. So really, it's just that wing guard role. Who wants that? And that's why I liked Lindy Waters. I liked Lindy Waters. I thought he could be a good filling guy. 6'6", 6'7", play for OKC, play for Golden State Warriors, play for winning organizations. He looked good with the Detroit Pistons last year, played with Cade Cunningham at Oklahoma State. I think he's a guy who can come in and fit and fit. And sometimes fit means a whole lot more than bringing in someone who has great talent, because those guys cost more and they take away from others. They take energy away from others. And I'm cautious of doing that when you're still trying to figure out what you got, which is what Trajan Langdon said at the end of the season press conference. We need to see what we got. Get some of these points here. Dante Massey, low budget stalker. Silver has been on the Avengers multiple alongside Beast. Uh, Storm's on the Avengers right now. Oh, you mean Wolverine? Y'all, that's a whole other sidetrack. Truth, they're building with gravity players that will force teams to match their skills match wise. I think that's a great point. They're building gravity players. Some people don't understand the difference between a player who is a good player, but then a player who has gravity. Gravity means drawing the attention of the defense. That as a collective, the defense has to shift whenever they are on the court or they get the ball, and forcing people to have to shift. That is tremendous. Kava, I hope the Pistons sign Bees. You know, it's not that I don't like Beasley. I just don't think that he has the defensive pedigree and the capacity to play at the level that they are going to need from that role. They need defense. Yes, shooting is great. But to be honest, he's going to have a much smaller role next season. In fact, I want the ball in the hands of Marcus Sasser more than Malik Beasley would. I will actually want Marcus Sasser to have more minutes than a Malik Beasley, because I like his playmaking. I like his ability to play make for others, not just catch and shoot, which he can do as well. Yeah, bring him in for spurts, but if he's getting 8 to 12 minutes a game when he's used to 26 minutes a game, right? That's a big decrease. And how much is that worth us? Because I can get a Lindy Waters to do it 8 to 12 minutes, who's 3 inches taller, who's younger, and will probably cost 3 times less. So these are things that we have to think about. We have to be shrewd. business wise, savvy. And I don't think Malik Beasley is going to want a pay decrease. But for the position, the role that we will have him in, these are things that I have to think about. See, you get to some of these last comments here. Great comment about the gravity, Tony. Uh, I love Tolu as well since he gives us size, but man, Paul Reed was the one who played a factor in getting us to game six. He was. Kind of want to bring him back and let Tolu cook in the G League. Tolu already cooked all year in the G League, and this is where you have to let guys ascend because when you bring in people to play over them as they're getting better, what they end up realizing is that it may not happen here, and they stop being bought in. Like you should have seen the impact it was having on Marcus Sasser last year with Beasley taking his minutes. You can see it was in his body language. And then when they brought in Dennis Schroeder, bro, you can see it just like, oh, I ain't never gonna get in the game. And that was a real sentiment. And I think that has a real impact on players. So I don't want to bring in guys who are going to take minutes away from the younger guys unless we need to. But if we can develop from within, I would prefer that. I would prefer that. Let me see. Last comments here. Am I crazy for liking Tim Hardaway Jr.'s leadership more than Beasley? I do like his leadership more. I feel like long term he could be a negative for the younger guys in the locker room. I'll say this much, and then I'm gonna get to your point, Danielle Williams. It's good to have you in here, Danielle Williams. I don't think I've seen you in the chat before, but welcome, welcome. Um, I like Tim Hardaway Jr.'s leadership, but that's also a role that we need Jaden Ivey to grow into. I get that he's young, but he needs to understand what it means to be a leader on this team, to be able to lead this team into the playoffs alongside Cade Cunningham, alongside Asar Thompson. So sometimes you take a step forward by taking a step back. Addition by subtraction. By moving on from Tim Hardaway Jr., you elevate Jaden Ivey and give him an example to step into a new role. All right. All right, it's gonna be the last comment here. I gotta hop off. I got a meeting. Um, Simone Stu Tobias, the 5 second, 5 second, 2029 first pick swap for KD and get Al Horford, Delano Banton free agency. Yo, that's a whole lot. Yo, hey Danielle, welcome to the community. Go back and watch the video. I did a whole spill on that. Like, nah, we're not bringing in Kevin Durant. I like him as a player. I'm not trying to take away from the guys that we already have here. Continuity is king. Depth is king, and I'm not. Uh, yeah, that's a really significant move that you make when you know what you have, similar to the Orlando Magic and Desmond Bain. You make that move when you know what you have and you're set. But I appreciate you coming through. I try to do these regularly. Sandro, okay, I'm gonna try to get to one of these. How you doing, Rock? Sorry for missing your last few lives. It's good. It's good. It's good to see you. I've been busy. But in your opinion, who won the Grizzlies Orlando trade for Desmond Bain? I appreciate that. I really do appreciate that. Let me just say this. I think both teams won in their own way for what they needed. Memphis needed to get some more cap flexibility, which they got. They got a little bit better point of attack defender with Contavious Caldwell Pope alongside Ja Morant. I appreciate that, Kiva. I appreciate that. Um, and I think Orlando won because Desmond Bain is going to bring some offensive versatility and gravity for a team that desperately needed it. Jalen Suggs does not have offensive gravity. No one's checking for Jalen Suggs. Franz and Paulo, yes, but it comes in the same kind of way. They overlap each other a little bit. And so a defense can gear up to stop that form of attack, of downhill attacking forwards. Now with Desmond Bain, you have a wing who can score off the move, and it diverts their attention and it forces them to have to open up and be conscious of another player who's moving around the perimeter, who can also not just catch and shoot and attack straight line drives, but can also run some pick and roll at a high level, meaning he can shoot over the top if you go underneath, and he can drive to the basket, throw a lob for one of the bigs, dump off, or finish, right? Like having that type of wing scoring versatility adds a completely new dynamic to that team. I think they're going to be top 15 offense. Top 15 offense. A lot of will be in transition, right? Jalen Suggs is back, high level defense. and now more efficient offense. But yo, I got to get off. I got a 2 o'clock. I'm already late, y'all. I appreciate all y'all for being in here. Let me know what you think in the comment section. If you enjoy this interactive live chat, smash the like button for me. Hit subscribe and the bell for notifications. It lets the YouTube algorithm know that you enjoy doing these live interactive chats. I hope to see you next time. Yo, Detroit Pistons, let's go. I'm out.